Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. This week we're going to be talking all about Spider-Man Far From Home. Joining me, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing great. I do want to give a shout out to Cameron, who just has such a movie star megawatt smile when he wants to turn it on. He just cranks that guy out every now and again. So yeah, shout out to that.
There you go. Yes, and speaking of, also joining us, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on? So yeah, we are wrapping up our month of Marvel stuff here in November before we dive into kind of holiday stuff with December, and we took the opportunity to wrap up our Spider-Man So Far series here with Far From Home. Obviously, we did Spider-Man Homecoming last week, and we will eventually, when it comes, do Spider-Man No Way Home whenever that finally makes its way to Disney Plus, and I look forward to doing that one. So yeah, Spider-Man Far From Home. It's going to be an interesting one because this was Logan's first time seeing it. This was Cameron's first time seeing it since theaters, I imagine.
I didn't watch it in theaters.
Oh, you didn't watch it in theaters? Okay.
I watched it on my phone on a plane.
Okay.
I hate that even more.
and then I've seen it a few times. Originally it was released July 2nd, 2019. Other releases of the time, of course, earlier that year, April 26, 2019, you had Avengers Endgame, the culmination of so
Never
many
heard of
things. Pokemon Detective Pikachu was May 10th. I remember seeing that with you, Cameron, in theaters, right?
Yep. It was a great time.
Yeah. John Wick
I've
Chapter
never
3.
seen Detective Pikachu.
Huh?
I said I've never seen Detective Pikachu.
Oh, it's a
I
good
feel like I
film.
would really enjoy it. Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It was one of the ones I just meant to watch and never got around to it.
Yeah, it was very much like that came out and then Sonic came out, and like both
Sonic
of them were
was great.
like, hey, we finally are getting good video game movies and adaptations and stuff. Because Pokemon Detective Pikachu, very cool to see the Pokemon like realized in like 3D and in a kind of like live action kind of film. And it's also, it helps that you're running around with a Ryan Reynolds voiced Pikachu, and not just Ash Ketchum trying to, catch them all and become the best Pokemon trainer ever and all that stuff.
The fact that the main character in it is actually like an insurance adjuster.
Yes.
It was like, I'm like, oh, your dreams went up in smoke when you were younger. I feel this. Like there's a residency to this. I feel very strongly about it.
I mean, the thing I will always remember, Justice Smith is kind of the main character. And like one of his first lines in the movie, like he's very much like, I'm clearly not going to be the best Pokemon trainer. I'm trying to catch a Cubone, and like they call out the fact that Cubone like wears the skull of its dead mom. And he's like, that is horrifying. And I was just like, perfect. No notes on the tone of this movie. Great.
Yep. Nails it. Also, just it really makes you just want to live in a world with Pokemon.
Yeah.
It just does.
Sure.
It's so good at making you be like, this could be a real world somewhere, and I want to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum was May 17th of 2019. Aladdin was May 24th. Godzilla King of Monsters was May 31st.
Hells yeah.
Great trailers for that movie.
Sure, yeah. Dark Phoenix was June 7th.
Didn't see that.
So that is the one X-Men movie. Well, I guess I also didn't see like the new Blood or whatever it is, like the one that was very much like this is a horror movie with X-Men kind of thing. I did not see that one.
Is Dark Phoenix the last X-Men movie?
Yeah, it was the last one, and it was
what a way to go out.
post Fox buyout, so it was very much like even Disney just kind of was like, we're just putting it out there. We don't really care if people go see it.
Who is Jean Grey in that again?
Sophie Turner from
That's
Game of
right. I
Thrones.
was like, it's someone famous. Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah.
Men in Black International was June 14th.
Eesh.
Toy
Also
Story
not
4 was June 21st.
Also not great.
Spider-Man Far From Home here, July 2nd. Midsummer, July 12th. Funny little counter programming there. The Lion King, July 19th.
Trevor's
Once Upon a
favorite
Time
movie.
in... Oh, God, I fucking hate that Lion King. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, July 26th. And Hobbs and Shaw was August 2nd. So that's
You know what's funny about this? I didn't even place it until you did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was like me and Trevor's like third, fourth date, I think, was at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. I mean, well, like,
It's
theoretically,
a
that
mid-tier Quentin Tarantino movie.
I mean,
but
yeah,
not the
we're-
worst at all.
we're in the months leading up to the launch of that nerdy site territory is where this is. So,
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, you and I were talking a lot over Borderlands 3 at this point.
Yes. Hell yeah.
So
yeah.
2019, this movie had a domestic gross of $390.5 million, which was up from Spider-Man: Homecoming, $334.2 million. So kind of enjoying that post-Endgame bump. So where do you guys think that falls in our domestic gross for 2019? Obviously, we've already touched on some of the heavy hitters, being like Avengers Endgame, that summer.
The highest grossing movie of all time domestically.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with number 6.
Number 6.
That feels right. I'm trying to like. There was no Bond movie in 2019. Was Rise of Skywalker 20? Yeah, it would have been 2019 with
Yep.
Rise of Skywalker.
Endgame, Skywalker, and I'm thinking,
But Rise of Skywalker it did worse than Last Jedi.
yeah,
So I'm trying to like peg. You said 6, Cam?
I said
feels
6. I
okay.
feel like 6 is
I'll
there
say-
because we're dealing with like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's also like anything.
Yeah, but that's not going to do. I'm gonna say.
Does
I'm
that
gonna
not
say
do-
4.
does-
I'm
I
gonna
don't-
say 4.
It's a Tarantino
R-rated
film, so I never
movies,
know if
though,
it.
Yeah.
I never know if it does.
Yeah.
It's gonna do like incredibly well, or if it's not.
No,
done well.
It'll be good
Tarantino's
for
art
like
house.
R-rated movies. Yeah.
I'll tell you, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was number 20 that year.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'll do-
I guess
I'll do
I
number
might
4.
I might bump it up to number 4.
Okay. Another one I'm going to throw out there, well, a couple. So Detective Pikachu that we touched on was number 19, just ahead of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. 1917 was the number 17 movie of that year.
1917 is real good. It's a
Knives
really good movie.
Out was number 15.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
$165 million. And then Netflix
Good for
threw it in
Knives
threw the sequel in theaters for a week because
Yeah,
they like money. John Wick
What a way
Chapter
to
3
kill
Parabellum was number 14.
Yeah.
So then getting into our top 10, we touched on it a little bit last week. Jumanji: The Next Level was number 10.
Oh, there you go.
That's the sequel. Yeah.
Number 9, a movie that will be forever linked to Cameron and I talking about that nerdy site, Joker.
Yeah, I knew exactly what movie when you started that up because that was the night that you told me about that nerdy site and
and saw the glint in your eye of like, maybe I do want to do stuff again, and invited you to be a part of it. Yeah.
what was that, like 3 months into my retirement?
Yeah, something like that.
yeah.
Aladdin was number 8. Spider-Man: Far From Home, number 7.
Oh, there you go. I should have
Good job.
kept
Good
up
guess.
at 6.
Good guess. Yeah.
Number 6 was Captain Marvel.
Oh shoot, Captain Marvel came out that year
Good for
too.
Captain Marvel doing better. Yeah. Good for them.
Captain Marvel, $426 million.
Captain Marvel,
domestic.
but Captain Marvel gets too much hate. I really like the third
I mean,
act.
Captain
is-
Marvel was a
even think
billion-dollar movie. Like that's
I
what
don't even think-
like it had discourse around it, but it made money.
Yeah,
See, I don't even think people hate Captain Marvel. I think people just forget Captain Marvel. Like, I think it's in that like immediate in-game wake of just like it just sort of gets like.
and I guess the only
Forgotten
thing people
about.
remember is the discourse around it, which is really shitty because it's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Brie Larson's great and everything.
True. Jude Law's fantastic in it too.
Toy Story 4 was our number 5 movie.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
One that obviously not here in the summer, came out later in the year, I believe. Frozen 2.
Oh
was
yeah, that
number
would smash
4.
it. I saw Frozen 2 in theaters. It was great.
Yeah.
Never seen either Frozen movie.
Whoa, okay, man.
yeah.
I know. I get that reaction all the time. Yeah.
I think we've had that reaction a couple times on the podcast.
Probably it just catches me off guard. I think you'd see it by now.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that like I keep like I kind of mean to, but like I just feel like
It's one
it is not going to be.
we can eventually do like
Yeah.
a couple weeks.
Yeah, I
of,
just don't
let's
know how
do
much I'll
Frozen,
like it, but
Frozen
yeah.
2. Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what? D Plus. We're on the D Plus show. Those movies are on Disney Plus.
There's your December.
Those
right?
are some
Yeah.
December hits right there. And they just announced that they're going to be doing
They just
3 and
stealth
4,
announced
right? Yeah.
4, and I was like,
Yeah.
had they officially announced a Frozen 3?
Yeah.
Like it's of course it prints
I had the
money
same
for them,
reaction.
so of course they were working on it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, Star Wars Episode 9: Rise of Skywalker brought in
Wow, that's
515 million.
disappointing.
Number 2, The Lion King with 543 million, and number 1,
is it?
Avengers
Yeah.
Endgame, blowing everything away by $300 million with
God, yeah.
858 million.
Highest grossing movie of all time domestically. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yep.
God, that's crazy. 300 million better.
Yeah. Yep.
It
300
did
million.
Spider-Man Far From Home basically better than the next best thing.
Yep.
That's insane.
So yeah, that is our domestic. When we move over into the so it was number 7 there, domestic. When we move over into the worldwide box office there in 2019, it had $1.13 billion. It was one of looks like 9 movies in the $1 billion club that year, which was
$1 billion
up from
means
the 880 million of Homecoming. So where do you guys think that falls in here in the worldwide gross of 2019?
I don't know if I think any of the things that were ahead of it domestically would have done worse, except for maybe Captain Marvel. I could see dipping below it internationally. And it was 7th, so
Yep.
I'll say 6.
Okay. How about you, Kim?
I don't think it moved. I think it's at 7. Oh wait, sorry, no. I think it actually dropped to 8. There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see Jumanji passing it.
Jumanji stays at number 10.
Okay,
Jumanji,
good.
the next level, 800 million. It is the only one in the top 10
God.
that was not a $1 billion earner.
That's $1 billion means nothing anymore. That's so sad.
Yeah. Aladdin was number 9 with 1.05 billion. Toy Story 4 with 1.07 billion. Star Wars Episode 9: Rise of Skywalker with 1.07 billion is number
Good.
8. Or sorry, is number 7 there. Joker climbs up to number 6.
Oh, right,
It was
yeah.
a whole
Okay.
thing. It made $1 billion. It was $4 million more than Rise of Skywalker.
They're both bad.
Captain Marvel 1.128 billion.
That was correct in saying.
Is-
So it really went up.
Number 5, yep. And Spider-Man: Far From Home, number 4 with
There you go.
1.13.
Wow. We should have stayed with our original guesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frozen
Yeah,
2
it
stayed
flipped.
up. 1.45 billion. Lion King 1.656
God.
billion. Any guesses as to how far ahead Avengers Endgame was from that?
I think Avengers is like 2.8 billion, I want to say.
I mean,
So whatever that is.
I will give you the point for that. 2.799. It rounds
Oh,
down,
okay, yeah.
but yes, it is basically 2.8 if you
Okay.
if you stop
I'll take
there.
that, yeah.
So yeah, at 1.1 billion dollars more than the number 2
God.
movie that year.
Highest grossing movie
Avengers
of all time.
Endgame was the highest grossing
That's crazy.
worldwide at the box office there. So yeah, Spider-Man: Far From Home climbing all the way up to number 4 worldwide. So yeah, shout out to that. Trying to think if there was anything else, like anything of note worth calling out here. No, that's probably it. So our film here has a runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes. In our Sony Spider-Man timeline of things, in between Homecoming and here, we did have Into the Spider-Verse had come out December 14th of 2018. So
Watch
yeah.
that together.
And then we wouldn't get another Spider-Man until No Way Home, December 17th, 2021. And then obviously we've also now had Across the Spider-Verse here in 2023.
I just want
And-
to say,
Yep.
not to belabor a dead point, but they crank these out every other year. So I think we talked about this last week, or whatever.
Yeah, you and I talked about it, I think, afterwards.
when we
for a
were
while.
when we were last like hanging out. But I just have to read the fact that in a 6-year, or no, in a 4-year period, excuse me, in a 4-year period, 3 Spider-Man movies. 6 years we get 1 Bond movie. 2017 to 2021 is
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
4 years.
4 years you had Homecoming, Into the Spider-Verse, Far From Home, and No Way Home.
Oh, and I don't even
four
count it in
movies
the
in-
Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
Even just live action. 3 and 4 years. We can't get a Bond movie every Morphin every 5-6 years. What are we doing here? What are we
Yeah.
talking about here?
Yeah.
Fix it.
There you go.
I just had to reiterate this again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in
The entire series happened.
in 20 years between 2002 and 2021, you had 8 live action Spider-Man movies.
Ooh,
How many
what
bonds
years
did you
again?
have
That's a fun
in
game.
2002
Yeah,
to 2021? 19 years.
Ooh, so it just gets Die Another Day in 2002 plus Craig's 5, so you get 6. So yeah, 8 to 6.
Yep.
Insane. And you have this entire series. All 3 of these movies happen to span in between Spectre and No Time to Die.
Yep. In our MCU timeline of things, we had Infinity War was April of 2018. Ant-Man and the Wasp would then go on July 6th of that year, followed by Captain Marvel here in March of 2019. Avengers Endgame, April 26th of 2019. And then Spider-Man Far From Home, the final Phase 3 movie of Marvel's Phase 3, July 2nd. And we wouldn't get another Marvel movie until Black Widow finally returned to theaters or made its way to theaters July of 2021, followed by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, September 3rd, 2021, Eternals, November 5th, 2021, and Spider-Man No Way Home, December 17th, 2021. So 4 movies in 2021, in 4 movies in 6 months of 2021 in the MCU, making up for lost time during the first year and a half of the COVID pandemic.
My question to you, to take us down a tangent, is... I don't know. No, this is a lot larger conversation, but Infinity War Endgame, Cameron, which do you prefer?
Which do I prefer, or which do I think is better? Ooh, they're such different films.
You wanted.
They're such
Trevor,
different.
You can also
films.
answer because I actually give a quicker answer. You can shoot from the hip faster here.
I'll go. Yeah, while Cameron postulates on this, I will say I probably like Infinity War better, but I will watch the last hour of Endgame a couple times a year.
That's fair.
I think like the last hour of Endgame is like basically the fight from Hulk snapping to the end is like flawless stuff to me. So
it is a literally cinematic masterpiece. Ah, man, I think that there's so much interesting stuff that happens in Infinity War, like so many interesting things where Endgame, the first 2 hours of Endgame are just fixing it. But there's a lot of stuff I really like about Endgame with the way that it's the setup of it is like 5 years later. What does that mean? Like, I don't feel, I feel like nobody expected that 5 years later leap. And so getting it felt like there's such a, and especially after that point, they're like, we have to do a balancing act now. We can't just reset the past. How do we make sure that we make things, they stay the way they are, just bring everybody back? And it really went into some interesting stuff with time travel and did something very different than a lot of other films do.
Yeah, I think Cameron missed your like real quick. What do you think?
I just real quick. I heard it. It's difficult. I think I agree with Trevor. I think I enjoy Infinity War, the setup, a lot more, but the last hour of Endgame is perfection. It's cinematic perfection.
Because I think that how you feel, those 2 movies inform so much of Far From Home. I think
Absolutely.
I think Endgame is better leaps and bounds than Infinity War. I'm very much someone who was not in love with Infinity War and had a lot of issues with that movie. And like you could see it in like, I think I have it ranked like 11th or 12th, 13th on like my AMC ranking, right? Like I had kind of flaws with that movie. Versus Endgame, I think they really just stuck the landing in a way that is sort of insane, right? And like I said, it is like, as someone who's not particularly a huge Marvel or MCU guy, really outside of Spider-Man, right? Or like Cap maybe, but like it's just it's sort of an insane achievement, right? Like in some ways, you know, the complexity of what they were doing, like it would almost be like if the sequel trilogy had been done well in terms of like tying together these two separate eras and bringing it all together in the sequel trilogy and like really nailing 7, 8, 9, which they didn't. Or I think like the audacity of like what like Casino Royale did in terms of just like really just doing something completely different. And making it work. And like in-game just shouldn't work, and it does. And like my biggest real issue with in-game is sort of what comes after it in a lot of ways, and sort of the pieces that have to be stitched back together, which I think are going to be, spoiler, a lot of my issues with Far From Home. But no, like in-game's just incredible, right? And Infinity War, I think, is really good, but to me, my thoughts on Infinity War are almost what your thoughts on Endgame were. Like, I think Endgame is so good consistently, and I think Infinity War for me is like just the last like fight section I think is really excellent, but a lot of the stuff before that I think doesn't work for me as well. I think it is like a lot of people like everyone trying to come together to make it work.
Yeah.
At the end. And also like the actual like ending of Endgame, specifically like Cap's ending, I think is like literally as perfect an ending you could possibly have given that character in that era of the MCU. Right? It's such a like kind of unexpectedly sweet ending to an MCU movie that you wouldn't have expected, I think. So I just had to ask real quick.
Yeah, and we will, I'm sure, eventually do a month of Avengers movies or something. We could do four Avenger movies for a month. Yeah.
We could even do like a supplemental like Civil War in there as well, because that's essentially
Avengers 3.5 or 2.5. Especially like, I mean, for me, it very much is like the audacity and how well Endgame works is absurd, and it's very much like the Russo brothers. Like it's rewinding back 8 years and being like, how or not even 8 years, I guess, like, 5, 6 years, whatever it was. Like, how are they going to bring the Avengers together in the first Avengers movie, and like the magic trick that was, and then like do that fourfold for Infinity War and Endgame, and shout out to them.
The thing about Infinity War so much though is there's all that setup, there's all that like, I mean, like crossover and team
up. The joy of Infinity War is like pairing up a whole bunch of different characters and seeing like the Guardians meet Thor and stuff like that, and
Thor, Rocket, and Groot making Thor's new axe. There's a lot of stuff that I just really enjoy about the setup. The get this man a shield.
I think
Bucky's glow up when he hears his boyfriend's coming to town. There's a lot of great stuff.
I mean, I think my biggest issue with Infinity War that I've talked about before that I get like a decent amount of flack for is that like, I say in general for a lot of MCU movies that there are no consequences and there are no stakes to what's happening here, because that's true in a lot of MCU movies. And I sort of felt that in the same way of Infinity War, where it's like, well, it's a part one of a 2-part thing. So like what happened, like obviously like these characters are not all just going to be dead. So like I was sort of like, this is like not a red herring, that's too strong a term, but like it's sort of like this doesn't really mean anything until we know
Empire
for sure what's
Strikes
actually
Back.
happening. And right, but like even Empire Strikes Back is sort of different in the sense of like if they, because they didn't kill off half the cast in Empire Strikes Back, then be like, oh, like they're gonna actually be, it's like, you know what I mean? Like it was like Infinity War ends, it's like, yeah, but they're actually not gonna kill off more than half their entire roster, because they're gonna make more movies, they're gonna do more stuff, and so that's why like when Endgame hits and there are consequences that happen in that movie, it feels so much more impactful to me, I think, versus in Infinity War, a lot of those like blip ones are just sort of like, yeah, but this isn't, what does this actually mean, right? This isn't potentially mean anything at all.
It means that when they unblip things, they'll come back. I don't know if it's like feeling
know the 5-year thing was going to happen, right? So we could have been like, oh, they're going to come back in like a day. And so it's like, yeah, but so that means nothing essentially, right?
But there was stakes because 5 years passed, which leaves an impact on characters.
We'll get into the 5-year. We'll get into the 5-year thing. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but I will say one thing that I think is to that point is like, you're saying because the meta narrative of filmmaking existed, you don't like Infinity War as much because you knew there's a second one coming out.
But I also think there is an element of that, right? Like that there's just sort of a reality of how movies work, right? This is like, but you can't kill off 2/3 of your roster and then just like act like you're actually gonna, like, you can't. I know you can't commit to that, right? So it's like, this is a fake
Well,
sense
is
of,
it fake or
finality.
if they know that you're in on it?
I mean, my argument in this, and then let's actually move over to Far From Home, would be like it's very much like, sure, you know that they're going to bring him back, but it's still about the how and what is going to. I didn't walk out. I walked out of Infinity War the
Infinity
first
War.
time thinking like, wow, they got rid of so many of their people, especially, it's hot off the heels of Black Panther making
Black
$1 billion,
Panther,
and they're like,
yeah.
wow, they dusted
They clearly
they
didn't know
dusted
what they
Wakanda.
had. It's like that. That's what that one was. Yeah.
Like, we know that's not going to stick, but how are they going to put the pieces back into play is very much like that's what was going to be exciting to see in Endgame.
Also, seeing who got dusted, who's not making it to the second move, like who's not going to be still around for the second film, who is going to make a big comeback.
To their credit, keeping just like the OG Avengers is like a really cool touch, right? Without that was something that I think, I mean, again, especially in the wake of Black Panther, no one would have expected for very obvious reasons. Clearly they didn't make these movies with that sort of knowledge. And so, yeah, it was kind of cool to see like, oh, like it is just like the original crew from like Avengers 1 again.
Plus some extras.
Plus some extras, but
plus
essentially
a
the same
couple
crew, yeah. But yeah, like it was a really cool touch.
Yeah. All right. Diving into Spider-Man Far From Home, our roll call here, our director, once again, John Watts, who we mentioned last week, did some Fatboy Slim music videos, as well as some Onion stuff, but really his biggest stuff has been the Spider-Man Home series, Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. Our writers this week are pared down to only the duo of Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, who were involved in last week's as well. But they come from TV, where they wrote for American Dad and Community. As we mentioned last week, they also did the Lego Batman movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, the Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. I don't think they came back and wrote the Next Level that was also out of this year. But they did also write Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then Spider-Man Far From Home and No Way Home. Our cast of characters, once again, Tom Holland here as Peter Parker Spider-Man, having been that role since Civil War. Other things include Onward from Pixar and Uncharted. Samuel L. Jackson makes his debut in a Spider-Man here with as Nick Fury, of course, which he's been playing since Iron Man. Also, of course, from stuff like Pulp Fiction, Star Wars, Snakes on a Plane, and The Hateful Eight.
What a shout to Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal here as Quentin Beck / Mysterio, having been in Donnie Darko, Brokeback Mountain, Nightcrawler, and Strange World, and almost having been Spider-Man many, many moons ago, after Tobey Maguire broke his back on Seabiscuit. He was very much like in the running to come and replace Tobey Maguire if he hadn't been able to come back for Spider-Man 2, as the story goes. Marissa Tomei returning as May Parker, My Cousin Vinny, The Wrestler, The Big Short, and the Spider-Man films here. Jon Favreau returning as Happy Hogan, having played that role since Iron Man, also having done Swingers and Chef. Zendaya is no longer Michelle, she is now just MJ, having been in Shake It Up and Casey Undercover, as well as the Spider-Man movies, Greatest Showman, Smallfoot, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Dune, and Euphoria. Jacob Batalon here as Ned, having been in Northwood's Spider-Man films and this year's Reginald the Vampire. Tony Revolori as Flash once again, a Wes Anderson regular going back to Grand Budapest Hotel. He's also in Willow. I could have pulled her in last time, I did not. But Andrew Rice, huh? What?
Also, Flash just clicked for the first time in my entire life, but that's the guy from Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, it's Zero
I,
from Grand Budapest Hotel.
He's like
that?
such a different person here that like I never was like they're completely different people. And then I'm like, oh my god, that's the same guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the Willow Show as well. He's a fantastic actor.
You just
really
broke my
love him.
mind, Trevor. Oh my god, yeah.
There you go.
He's obviously playing a lot younger here. Is part of the reason why.
Yeah. I could have called her out in the last one, but since she has a little bit of a bigger role this time, I gave credit to Anjali Rice as Betty Brant, She was in The Nice Guys. She's obviously here in the Spider-Man movies, and she is going to be She's going to be the Lindsay Lohan role in the upcoming Mean Girls musical movie that is coming out. That the trailers are trying to hide that it's a musical.
It's a musical,
as we occasionally are seeing these days.
Same with the Willy Wonka one too.
Yep,
yeah.
Same with Wonka. Yep, also a musical. Anytime that comes up, I think about our group chat with Plank, where he did not know that Dear Evan Hansen was going to be a musical until going and seeing the movie.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good. I love Plank. Yeah, God bless him.
Remy He is Brad Davis here. He was previously in Neighbors and the Marco Polo Netflix show, as well as Crazy Rich Asians. And after Spider-Man Far From Home, he was in Arcane, the Riot League of Legends Netflix animated show. And then a flurry of little kind of bit part / small credits. Martin Starr once again here as Mr. Harrington, having been in stuff like Freaks and Geeks, Party Down, and Silicon Valley. No Hannibal Buress this time, but we do get the introduction of Mr. Dell, played by J.B. Smoove, stand-up who recently can be heard in the High on Life game last year, as well as he's the plant in Harley Quinn on the WB/Max, HBO Max stuff. Jorge Lindeborg Jr., calling him out. He plays Jason Iannello, who's the other anchor of the newscast stuff alongside Betty Brant. So just wanted to give him a nod. In addition to the Spider-Man Homecoming and this, he's also in Bumblebee and Alita Battle Angel. Kobe Smulders here, of course, is Maria Hill from How I Met Your Mother and Maria Hill since The Avengers. Peter Billingsley returning as William Ginter Riva, having played that role way back in Iron Man, as the movie highlights. Of course, he's also Ralphie, notoriously from A Christmas Story.
Mm-hmm.
J.K. Simmons here with a mid-credit cameo as J. Jonah Jameson, of course, reprising that role from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, as well as Whiplash. And I always remember, I saw pictures of him at the premiere the night before the movie released kind of thing, so I was like, well, that's a weird thing for him to be at if he's not in the movie, so I think they just spoiled that he's in the movie. And sure enough, Ben Mendelsohn in an uncredited cameo as Talos in our post-credit sequence, having been the role in Captain Marvel and most recently Secret Invasion. He's also from Rogue One and Ready Player One. And Sharon Blynn as Soren, his wife, in another uncredited role, reprising from Captain Marvel. She was also in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves earlier this year. I believe she was the big bad evil Fey witch in the flashback, when the paladin's basically being here's how bad things can be, and here's why you don't want this death thing kind of coming out. I'm pretty sure that's who she played in that. So yeah. Sadly, we have no Stan Watch in this episode, as this is the first film that Stan Lee did not have a cameo in following his passing. Our trivia, this was the Kids' Choice Award winner for Tom Holland for Favorite Superhero, and nominations for Zendaya, Tom Holland, and Favorite Movie. Also won a People's Choice Award for Zendaya for Favorite Female Movie Star, and Tom Holland for Favorite Action Movie Star. And Tom Holland won a nomination had a nomination for Favorite Male Movie Star, and it had nominated for Favorite Action Movie and Favorite Movie. And it won some Teen Choice Awards for Choice Summer Movie Actor, and Choice Summer Movie Actress in Tom Holland and Zendaya. Surprising, really, that they managed to win anything over Endgame, but there you go. As we touched on in last week's episode, Peter's suitcase has the letters BFP in honor of Benjamin Franklin Parker, a.k.a. Uncle Ben, a.k.a. yes, he did exist in this universe, and Cameron didn't need to rethink all of his opinions on the Far From Home.
You were spot on.
Movie.
Yeah.
As I said, this is the first Marvel Studios movie without a cameo from Stan Lee following his passing on November 12th, 2018. Peter's passport lists August 10th as his birthday. Spider-Man's first appearance was in Amazing Fantasy number 15, released August 10th, 1962. When Peter meets Beck, Beck explains that Peter is in Earth 616, but that Beck is from Earth 833. Comic book readers may recognize that Earth 616 is the traditional designation for the main Marvel universe, whereas Earth 833 refers to the universe in which Spider-Man UK, or Spider UK, serves as a member of the Captain Britain Corps. I think also, since this movie came out, the film verse has been designated either Earth 19999, or Earth 1999-99, or Earth 616 adjacent. So they still like playing with their stuff. Edith is voiced by Dawn Michelle King, who is the first assistant director on both Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming. This was Samuel L. Jackson's third consecutive MCU appearance as Nick Fury following Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame. This also marks the first time an MCU character appeared in 3 films in 1 year. And then lastly, I pulled in here, Maria Hill, quote, Maria Hill calls, quote, Nick Fury, Nick, multiple times over the course of the film. Just 2 movies after Nobody Calls Me Nick was a big old plot point in Captain Marvel, foreshadowing the post-credits reveal that Talos and Soren had been Fury and Hill over the course of the movie. So there we go. So yeah, how does this one hold up? / what do we think? Logan, I want to throw it to you, this being your first time watching this. What did you think of Spider-Man Far From Home?
I think that I liked Far From Home with all the pauses and hesitation in that I can possibly put in there. I think it's more good than bad for sure. It's not the worst MCU movie. It's not even the worst Spider-Man movie. I find Tom Holland and Zendaya just really charming together, and I just like them a lot. Mm-hmm. I also desperately wish the movie gave me more of them together. Like the whole, I already forgot his name because it's relevant. Like Ben, I think, or whatever the dude's name is, Fred, the guy who's like the rival for MJ's like affection movie. Brad, yeah. Completely didn't need that whole plot point in there. Completely unnecessary, especially with like how quickly they kind of dispatch it.
It was very much like I forgot who he was before, like when I was, because I put the doc together before I watched the movie on this, and I was like, who the hell is Brad? Like, why is he so high in the credits? I was like, oh, that's right, now I remember. Like,
so I didn't need any of that, and it just serves to like take more time away from people who have just really great chemistry and who are just really electric on screen together. So that was kind of unnecessary, but I mean, they're great together. They're so good together. I think it's a weird, sort of by design, Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of interesting, right, to kind of get Spider-Man, not in New York City, but just some completely different, right? Mm-hmm. And then he doesn't have like, he's out here doing like, spy shit and like snooping around like European cities, right? Yeah, it's very like interesting, like him going to like Venice and Prague, and Berlin, and so it's a weird movie in that ways. It's sort of actually maybe most similar to like Civil War, actually, in terms of like having to do a lot of MCU heavy lifting while also trying to be a movie for this character. And a lot of the problems I have with Civil War, I also have with this one, right? In terms of, let's get it out of the open. I don't like the blip. I think it's really great in Endgame, and then I think that I would have liked it to have ended there and then like undone it or something. And the fact that it keeps going forward, I just think it's like a thing that just constantly sprouts up more problems than it solves. And they have to just deal with it, and it's just kind of silly. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh yeah, like all of this group,
the Spider-Man, like Peter's entire kind of core class, all blipped. Like, what are the odds?
And it's like, all right, like fine, whatever. Like, yeah, like we're just gonna, and so like it's silly. One of the biggest issues I have with the movie, actually.
Well, Brad didn't blip, remember? That's the entire point.
Nobody knew Brad before. Brad's irrelevant. And that's the thing, is like Brad wasn't in the last movie, so he's just a character introduced to say, hey, look, there are people in Peter's school that did age.
but like one of the issues I have with this movie is that because it has to do so much heavy lifting, kind of following from Endgame, is that they sort of don't let things linger in a way that I would have wanted them to. Like this movie feels this innate pressure to, which is sort of personified onto Peter, to like immediately find a successor to RDJ. And I just really can't with it. And part of that is because it's not set up well, right? Like it's not really remotely established in any other MCU movie that anyone even knows who this kid is, really, let alone thinks he's going to be like the second coming. And so in this movie constantly beats us over the head with the fact that you are now the new Tony Stark. You are now the new Iron Man. You're going to be the new guy. You're going to be the new guy. You're going to be the new leader. You're the new head. You're the new leader. You're the chosen one. You're the chosen one. You're the chosen one. A lot. Like, it's like all over my notes. And just sort of like, and it's a classic example of like them telling us this thing instead of showing us this thing. And I just found it distracting every single time, right? Like I'd have loved it. I mean, Kevin Feige and MCU know what they're doing. We just talked and raved about how good Infinity War and Endgame were. And this was like an example of like, I would have liked this to be like threaded better through the movies up until then. It's that when you get to this point, it's like, oh, cool. It feels like a more natural thing, but it doesn't, right? Because up until this point, we've had Cap and Tony are like a duopoly leading the Avengers, and there's a clear drop, and then you get to like Thor and these other kind of people, and then so far down, no one even knows who the fuck he is like Spider-Man, basically, right? And so it's weird that everyone's suddenly just like, oh, he's the guy now. And like the amount they're having to get into it. And like, I know what they're going for in terms of like the pressure of having to like step into these shoes and this kind of thing. And all of that's great. They just tell me that and they don't show me that. And that I found to really not be as effective as I think they want it to be. And I think they sort of smartly didn't make that a point in No Way Home. And I think sort of by the nature of that, if there was to be like a Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland, it would be a more natural plot point now for him to kind of step into this role after everything he's done through like No Way Home and get into experience as other Spider-Man, right? But here it feels very rushed and messy. But otherwise, like, I think I like this movie's charm more than Homecoming in some ways, right? Like, I think Homecoming is a John Hughes movie, as Trevor kept attesting to last week. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it's a great John Hughes movie, right? It's like a John Hughes knockoff movie, right? I mean, like, to be fair, the bar is very high for John Hughes movies, sure, right? Yeah. But like, it's one that I think doesn't nail it. And I think this sort of nails that, like you said, like kind of like the bar is a lot lower for like Euro trip kind of movies, to be fair, admittedly. But I think it does it in a way that's sort of more fun and whimsical and silly and kind of leans into this. And so the thing that surprised me the most that I enjoyed is how much, like how it doesn't take itself seriously in a lot of moments. And how it does just kind of let loose. And like a great example to me of this is everything with Aunt May and Happy. I think it's just great. And like Peter's continuing just sort of like, what's going on here? What's going on? Is like really good. I think it's really fun. And I think these are some of the moments that I think Tom Holland does really well. And I think, Tom Holland's like a very affable, fun person. And while I think he's maybe not who I would cast as Nathan Drake, just to give a random example, I think these are moments where his Peter really shines really well. I think in a way that he's almost too... I don't even know what in Homecoming, but I think he kind of gets into the groove a bit better in this movie.
Cool. Cam, how about you? How do you think this one holds up?
I mean, it tells better than it did on my phone.
Sure.
I really enjoy this movie. There's a point where like it gets kind of like I get a little anxiety during, and Trevor knows because I was kind of like having like an anxious fit during it while we were watching it the other night.
I mean, I didn't catch that.
It's just it's the when they're in the bar and it's,
I mean, I do want to unpack that because you were like, oh, I hate this part, and I'm like, okay, I don't. I'm going to circle back to figure out why do you hate this part. So yeah, let's dive into that. The bar,
when they're in the bar,
when Peter and Mysterio are in the bar.
I feel weird about it because it's just a matter of like anxiety. Like I know what's going to happen. I know that he's bad.
Okay.
Here's the
Dramatic irony. You know what's about to happen.
I picked up what was happening the moment the thing got hit at the Ferris wheel. Like the projector got hit.
Mm-hmm.
The moment I saw that, because I was really, the first time I watched it, I was really sold on Mysterio being like this interdimensional warrior. I was super sold on it, and I was like, I really like what this is doing.
Interesting, because we go back to that meta thing, and it's like you're casting Mysterio. Well, obviously Mysterio is the bad guy. Like I was never sold that like the elementals are the real bad guy, and Mysterio's here to help, and it's gonna be a buddy team up thing. I was like, no. I don't know what the play is going to be, but like you don't cast Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio to not have him be like, smarmy villain kind of thing.
For me, it was, I thought, oh, he's like gonna like, but he's like mystic and whatnot. I'm like, cool, another mystic, like magic character. Maybe he's going to absorb the elementals, and then it becomes like a more interesting thing. And then the projector hit, and I'm just like every time the projector gets hit, like my stomach sinks because it's just a reminder. It's like, oh, it's fake. It's all fake. It's all fake. And he's all doing this, and it's all happening. And then in the bar,
it's almost just like that's Mysterio's entire deal.
I know, right? That's one of the reasons Mysterio always freaks. Anyway, it's just the like seeing how he socially engineers Peter every single step to get those glasses is like, it just gives me anxiety because I just see this I see the gaslighting, I see the like all the social cues of somebody being a manipulator and a narcissist and just taking advantage of somebody who is super vulnerable, having like lost like his most recent father figure, who like there's so much going on for Peter. And to see this guy just hurt him in and do something so awful and terrible to him, like really like just makes my gut sink and gives me like really bad like I just get I have a very minor anxiety attack every time that bar scene comes on, because even to the point where the barmaid, she pickpocketed Peter and picked up the glasses. She pretended to pick up the glasses.
Yeah. I mean, yes, the whole thing is a plant to like, oh, hey, you dropped these. Oh, you are those the glasses you dropped them? How? Yeah.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal's so good at making me want to believe that he's a good guy.
And
this is even after I've seen Nightcrawler.
Yeah. There was such a joy to, I mean, like, the relationships in this movie for me are very much like the Peter and Zendaya that you mentioned, Logan, and the Peter and Mysterio relationship. And so much of the press around this movie was Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal out there doing like the two seats and stuff like that. And like you saw clearly how much fun they had working together and what a joy they had and what a respect they had. And so like that make like it is a beautiful thing. And I mean I do buy, yes, Mysterio's a bad guy, but I do buy like when he says like, I didn't want it to come to this. I really liked you, and if you hadn't gotten my way, like we
I believe that too, yeah. Because here's the thing, even after you find out that he's done this like despicable thing to Peter, you still want to like him.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal's just so good, which is why Jake Gyllenhaal's the perfect Mysterio. It's because he's so good at what he's doing. Shout out to him being in like the footy pajamas at the entire time, actually. Like,
I mean, like, well, I love that, like the reveal that, especially if you've like watched a whole bunch of like behind the scenes of the MCU stuff, I love that it's basically the CG suits that the actor, like that, Mark Ruffalo's out there wearing when he's the Hulk. It's the same CG suit. I got a kick out of that.
It's so good on so many levels, and also, but like here's because the kicker is also towards the end. Like in the end, he's just a rat bastard.
I mean,
Because
like, yeah, he's what Tony called him out for. He is like a unstable narcissist kind of thing, and
yeah,
he created the tech that Tony called barf. Yeah.
yeah, it really is just like a really like he's so good, and like I know he can be a bad person in movies. I've seen him in plenty of stuff where he's the bad person in the movie, but every time he's like, no, I'm the good guy. I want to believe him. It's so good. So yeah, that moment is just like the like anxiousness just like packing up inside of me from watching the movie up to that point, which is why I'm like, I just hate this part.
It's also such a fun juxtaposition compared to the dynamic we saw with Peter and the Vulture in the last movie. The complete like, oh, they were on two completely separate paths until they intertwine. Here it is like they're like on the same path from the jump, largely or partly at least through I guess mostly through Mysterio's kind of own machinations to put them on that same path, but as a result we do get like this nice camaraderie between them, and then it turns into this like psychological stabbing of the knife that is a lot of fun there as well.
I mean, he does make a good point. Like, Tony Stark did leave like the biggest defense weapon to a teenager.
I mean, that's why that's another thing I was gonna say is like, yeah, he's manipulating Peter, but like also that like Tony's leaving of Edith to Peter is way too much of a thing to have left to a 16-year-old kid, as he highlights in this movie. So yeah, it's absurd that like you put that much power into a kid's hand, even if it is Spider-Man. Other things I love about this movie, much like we like you said, Logan, like the way that this one is a Euro trip kind of movie compared to the John Hughesness of the last one, like leads to a lot of fun, and I probably hadn't really like thought about it too much myself until this viewing, but like throughout this viewing, I'm sitting there thinking to myself a lot, oh, that's right. I did this. I went like when I graduated high school, I went with like 20 kids
like
and a couple
summer.
teachers for a 3-week trip to Europe. We did more of like Northern Europe and stuff. So we did like UK and France and like the Netherlands and stuff. But like my sister, when she did this same kind of trip a couple years later, she did do Italy and like Germany and stuff like that. So it was like a fun like nostalgia kind of like flashback thing just in my own memory as I'm watching through these adventures. And I remember like I had a girlfriend back home at the time kind of thing, but it was like very much like, oh, you know, if you know she were here, or what kind of like, you know, memories would we be making or something like that. So I love that. I do. Yeah. I mean, so much of this, the fun joy of this is like, clearly in between movies, Peter has developed a much bigger crush for MJ, and so he's got this big old plan. Right. And Ned's like, no, that's a stupid plan. We got to be bachelors in Europe. And then like, I love that immediately gets like turned on its side with Ned and Betty, like starting to date on the flight over. So like, I love that even kind of like leaves Peter a little bit more alone, and so he can just fall even more into to Mysterio's clutches. But yeah, I think like one of my favorite scenes, kind of rewatching it here, was the bridge scene where MJ's like, "You're Spider-Man." No, I've of course you're Spider-Man. Like that's like here's, and like she kind of lays it all out, and Peter's like, no, that's not what I'm. And then he has to like immediately kind of about face it when he realizes what has happened and how bad things are going to be. So I love that, like, you know, she is rewarded for having, you know, kind of paid attention, and she figures it out and didn't need Peter to tell her, kind of thing. She needs him to confirm it effectively, but like I loved that that moment, the first time watching it, I love that moment of her calling him out on it and him being like, no, that's not, no. And then, but also being like hurt that like
She was
only watching him. And obviously we know that that's not the case. But they're 16-year-old kids. They got to save face. So of course, that's the only reason I was paying attention to you. Not because I secretly like you. There was like so much joy and like nostalgic, high school crush kind of like vibes to that whole thing. Even like let's go in on a pair of like opera glasses together, even though Peter knows he's not going to stick around for it and stuff like.
Also, shout out to Brad just like flipping him off at the curtain call.
Yeah, fun little bit there.
Yeah, just like because they.
Speaking of, I also love the like. Wait, so Brad's a target, and then like Edith trying to kill Brad on the bus. It was a fun little action sequence that we get. Also, I love every time I get a kick out of. I don't know if you caught it here, Logan, on your first viewing, but when Peter's like looking at like what everybody's texting or what people are like searching and stuff, Flash has a text basically being like, "Mother, I haven't heard from you," or "Father, is everything okay?" And so like it kind of plants the seeds for what we get later on. Basically, like a couple times throughout the film, there's just this like almost unspoken subplot of like Flash's parents just completely ghosting him, and obviously when he shows up back home, like he's talking to his chauffeur, what like, "Mother couldn't come get me from the airport after I almost died in Europe."
It really just showed Flash is deeply unloved.
Yeah.
The one I got, I didn't catch that one, but I caught the one of Betty and Ned just texting "miss you too" right next to each other.
To each other, yeah. And the JB Smooth's character is like Googling like witchcraft in or something,
which plays into his whole diatribe and everything. I'm a science teacher and science can't explain it, therefore it's witchcraft. Welcome to the new Dark Ages.
So I love all that. I meant to go back and check because there's like one of the trivia things I saw was right before Peter goes in to buy the Black Dahlia necklace for MJ. According to the trivia, I didn't verify. There is a Jake Gyllenhaal like in street clothes, basically out there scoping out Peter right before he goes in. Can't confirm that, but if the trivia is right, that's a cool little thing. If not, it was like a look-alike, kind of thing. But yeah, I love the little montages that we get. Much like I really enjoyed the montages of kind of like neighborhood Peter in the last one, of them enjoying their moments in Venice before the water elemental comes out and kind of kicks off. Like I loved the kids, Flash doing his flash mob thing, and somebody comes by and whacks him in the nuts.
Yeah, I was like, did I miss something about that? Being a plot? I was so confused when that first happened. I was like, what did I just watch here?
No. And I love. I had forgotten about it, so I love the moment where Mr. Harrington is like setting up the camera to like take a picture, and he sets it up, and you're like, okay, he has bad luck. Of course that's going to fall into the water. And then it doesn't, and it's not until he grabs it and starts like trying to look at it that he drops it in. I was like, yep, you got me. I thought I remembered it, but then you didn't, as you subverted my, and then you dropped it. So yeah, I love just like little moments like that kind of stuff.
Well, it's every time you think, oh, they're gonna make him look pathetic, and you're like, no, wait, and like, oh, you just made him look even more pathetic.
Yeah, or I like him. I like his arc over the course of the movie. Well, one of the best lines in the movie is him talking about how his wife pretended to be blipped. So you can hate the blip all you want. I love how they like turn the blip into a joke in this one.
Also, like even the point out where Flash is like, he's like, first class is awesome, y'all.
Yeah.
And he
was like, blipped, so he's only 16.
16? Wait, I don't even know them. It's just such a good MJ is so good at like pinpointing ways to just deflate people.
Yeah, I mean, let's go all the way back to like the opening like Marvel crawl to "I Will Always Love You," and it's the like kids memorial, complete with like Shutterstock or Getty Images, water printed like candles, kind of lit up for Iron Man and Black Widow, and Cap, and the like. Yes, I will agree with you, Logan, in that I think the blip and the idea of the blip has not been used to great aplomb, in a way that I think it could be. There could be some very interesting stories of like, what was life like with suddenly half the world not here, and like the couple times that they've tried to dive into that, like in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Black Widow and whatnot. Yeah.
They don't. Black Widow didn't. No, Black Widow doesn't do it.
Black Widow takes place during the 5 years, doesn't it?
No, Black Widow takes place before.
Before Iron Man 2, even.
It takes place basically like right after Civil War.
Oh.
Yeah.
In my head, why did I think that? It's been a while since I watched it. I haven't watched it since I had to watch it right before, because I was trying to watch Hawkeye. Yeah. And all of a sudden this character shows up and I'm like, I'm supposed to know who she is. But I don't. And I told you that. I was like, yeah, I'm like 5 minutes into the episode and I was like, some blonde woman. And you're like, oh, yeah, Black Widow. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah. Florence Pugh gets introduced in Black Widow. But that.
And thank goodness I did go back and watch Black Widow because that is a pretty good film. I liked it a lot. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people have problems with it.
Yeah, I
Logan is not one of those.
That's fair.
But I do like.
I think it's my least favorite MCU movie. Actually, it's either that or second least favorite.
Yeah, I think like there have been cool moments of like blip stuff. Like in WandaVision, I love Monica Rambeau, kind of like coming out of the blip in the hospital room and kind of her backstory stuff. And the Florence Pugh one in Hawkeye is an interesting little bit of. She was, after the events of Black Widow, she's out there trying to save other widows and blips away. And then like 5 years go by and she blips back and has to deal with that. And I like the how it's played in this for laughs a couple times, a la the teacher joke earlier, or the like footage of the band coming back in the middle of a basketball game and getting like, collided and stuff, or even Aunt May's kind of like joke about when I blipped back, the people in the house didn't like thought I was a mistress. It's like, yeah, that would be an interesting thing, but it very much is like you introduced such a huge thing that every movie has to deal with now.
It, right? That it just like stuck. Yeah. Because like the best usage of the blip is in Endgame, where it's like done, I think, really interesting, right? Like Cap's like support group, like those moments I think are like really beautifully poignant. I think that's part of why, to an earlier conversation, like I like Endgame more than Infinity Wars, that I think it has a level of like poignancy and kind of like quiet like solitude to it that Infinity or really any other MCU movie doesn't. And then since they didn't like reset it completely at the end of that movie, they had to just kind of deal with like the fact that everything has to address this because it's a huge deal,
or it just doesn't, and then you're like, okay, but like realistically, then, like the world drastically changed, and you can't just change it back overnight.
Either you deal with it, and you have to like kind of deal with it, but you can't make the whole movie that, or you don't deal with it, and then you sort of have like these other questions. And so it's like like I said, like it opened a can of worms that they haven't been able to kind of put back in the can again.
Yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, like there's so many like small things about this that like rewatching it just kind of left like a big old smile on my face. I agree. And I also like it is a very fascinating thing seeing a Spider-Man movie that's not in New York. And how is that going to and I like that, Peter calls out like if Spider-Man shows up here, this plus the DC thing from my last movie, of course everybody in my class is going to put 2 and 2 together. So I like that like they at least try and call out how absurd that would be. The fact that like they immediately come up with the whole like Night Monkey thing and Ned saying this somehow catches other news stories or whatever. But yeah, another great gag that we got that I know Cameron laughed his ass off at was Flash seeing the news report and being like, "What I think I like Spider-Man. He's a cool guy. He makes me want to be a better guy. Hey, what up, dickwad?"
It's so good. It's so good. It's the Penis Parker it's the pseudo Penis Parker callback, and it's just the absolute best. It's like the best dichotomy of like explaining, hey, how would you explain Flash Thompson, Peter Parker in high school? Mm-hmm. And it's Flash Thompson is the world's biggest Spider-Man fan in the world, but is also the biggest dick in the world to Peter Parker. My favorite interpretations are where Flash Thompson only goes after Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. Doesn't bother with anybody else. Everyone else thinks Flash is super cool and nice and chill until he gets Peter Parker in his sights, and then he just can't help it. Those are my favorite interpretations of Flash, and I love that this is it. It's like, yeah, I love Spider-Man. He's the best. Like, he helped make the neighborhood safer. He cares about people. He makes me want to be a better man. Hey, what up, dickwad? It's just so fucking, without missing a beat. It's just so perfect. The actor, I love him so much. He's so good.
Yeah. Shout out Tony Revolori. And then I do love, obviously, it gives Cameron a sense of dread, but I love the turn. I love how over the top that like monologue is. And I like, and I do love the idea. Like, I wish they could have found a way to bring in like other, people from Tony's past or something like that. Like, I mean, hell, you could have done it with like the woman in Iron Man 2 who's like, or I guess she was in Iron Man 1 too, like the journalist who sleeps with her and then is the reporter. Like, bring her back, and she's part of this crew that Mysterio has put together or something. But the fact that they retcon him to be the creator of the barf glasses, and then from Civil War, and then obviously also pull in Ralphie as like a, let's go all the way back to Iron Man 1, is just a great touch to like to tie it into the MCU in a way they didn't have to do. Like, they could have just completely made this like all right, all of these people are people that Tony wronged, but you don't know any of them. Right. So I love that they do give you at least like one little like nod to a character from a past movie, even if that character never had any screen time with Tony and was really only with Obadiah Stane.
But the thing is that Tony Stark he's outclassing them all. That's the thing.
Who?
Does Hammer from Iron Man 2 die in Iron Man 2?
No, he's in jail. He's in jail. And he has popped up in other things.
So he's
still in
like
jail.
A fun character to have.
Yeah,
was he in Hail the King?
He was in Hail the King. Yeah. The one of the shorts, one of the MCU shorts.
It's the one with Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley, yeah.
His Trevor Slattery. It's the one where the real Mandarin breaks him out of prison.
Yeah.
Dumb. There's no real Mandarin. Mandarin's dumb, guys.
It's the 10 Rings breaks him out of prison. It was long before Shang-Chi set him up, but he's popped up in that, and I think he's been referenced like one or two other times still since then. You could have had like, antagonists of Tony Stark kind of. I don't think he would go full into like, working with Mysterio as a thing, but I like especially that it is like, lower level henchmen have all kind of banded together to pull one over and do this tech. And I also like that there is an element of like, to what he says of like, you can be the smartest man in the room, but if you don't have like, magical powers or lightning coming out of the sky, nobody's going to listen to you in this day and age because of this. So we need to do something that will make them listen. Does come from like just an interesting place, obviously also of his like narcissism and ego. But yeah. And then I love, I also love the way that they tie the Peter Tingle that gets set up as a joke early on to, okay, he needs to rely on that. We need to really use the spider sense to see through and break through Beck's illusions, because otherwise Peter's going to get destroyed by a train.
God, it was so good.
Yeah.
Which also shows he's never willing to do his own dirty work.
I think that one thing that I found interesting too was in the post Man of Steel era of we have to have fights in abandoned train yards where no one can possibly get injured.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting that they just fucking started this thing with just the water elemental just destroying Venice, just absolutely obliterating that scene. It's like, oh, this just should killing people for sure.
Well,
like,
to be fair, it's not
Venice.
hard with how like in disrepair they point out Venice is. It's like not hard to destroy Venice.
Mm-hmm.
The
Sure,
city's
yeah,
halfway
but
sunk.
It was
so.
like, it was interesting that like take that versus like Avengers Endgame final fight for like an hour is just like in the middle of nowhere, right? And
Well,
it's very
Avengers
much like,
compound,
oh, like
yeah.
we're fighting in a city.
Upstate New York.
Yeah, forget about Man of Steel and everyone's reaction to that. It's like, no, we'll kill people. It's okay. He's a bad guy.
Yeah. I do like the Venice stuff because of
It's
it,
really good.
because it plays with the creative, like, well, you see Tom Holland out there doing some of the stunts and stuff like that because
Yeah,
he's not
I
wearing a
agree.
mask. But then I also like that they even set up like the little carnival thing was going on, so that's how he's able to pull a carnival mask to kind of hide, his identity from at least like his friends seeing what's going on and stuff like that. But I like him. I mean, having to kind of work without a suit is a fun aspect of some of the sequences in this film.
I'm glad you said that too, because the moment when he like first like did like a flip like as just himself, I was sort of like, we've like never really seen this, have we? Just like a Spider-Man fight completely like devoid of anything else. It was like, this is like a very interesting, cool twist on Spidey after 6 movies, whatever it's been, right?
And obviously, like, his web doesn't really do anything against, even if it was really water, it's not doing anything against that.
Yeah.
So he ends up kind of having to be in like protect mode, or let's try and
Right.
save this collapsing clock bell, and instead just knocking himself out a couple times.
I was gonna say, shout out to the good side. Yeah, you just boom, boom, knocked himself out a couple times on that.
Yep. And then I really love the psychological stuff with the later Mysterio sequence when in Germany where he is posing as Fury and everything, and just messing with Peter's head.
Yep.
In all of the different visuals of that, and like that is very much the complete opposite of like, okay, none of this is real, so we're just in CG Wonderland here, but having a good time with it, and also getting to play with like what Peter's fears are. And yes, the movie does belabor the point of Iron Man is no longer around, and so let's have like the zombie of Iron Man come out of the ground kind of thing, and maybe if you'd been better, he'd still be alive. Certainly a haunting kind of prospect there. But even the fact that he kind of like lets the illusion break, but still kind of just uses that to trick Peter even more, thinking that like Fury did shoot Mysterio, and no, not really. Mysterio was still pulling strings the whole time, and now you've walked into a train. It makes him like immediately as menacing, if not more so, than Vulture was, in a sense, because he knows Peter better than the Vulture knew him. So he gets to kind of like play on that level too. I think is a lot of fun there. What did everybody think about the like and UK sequence and all that stuff?
I really liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty fantastic the way that. How does Peter deal with drones? How does he deal with the swarm? How does he deal with the illusions? How does he handle everything that's going on with it? Now the veneer's been pulled back and we see how everything's supposed to be done, so we get kind of like the inside look at it. How does this fight evolve, and how does Peter deal with it? I felt like trusting the Peter tingle, along with just especially at the end with when he's up against Mysterio and just calling out Mysterio is like, it's such bullshit. Like, he's so bullshit now. You don't even believe the illusion in front of you. It's so, the entire sequence leading up to it, the Mysterio getting, like, shooting himself on accident, all plays directly into this lead up of like this is Peter Parker being confident as Spider-Man. He's no longer kind of like the Mr. Stark kid from Homecoming. This is him stepping up and being the superhero that he needs to be. And he pulls it. I think he just like, it just does such a great way of pulling it off and overcoming the platitudes and the confirmation that he earlier felt like he needed from somebody like Mysterio and from Nick Fury, the kind of validation he felt like he needed as Tony Stark's quote unquote heir. And instead he has now come around as somebody who believes in himself. And that makes all the difference. I think it's fantastic.
Any thoughts from you, Logan?
I definitely like it less enthusiastically than Cameron does. But I think it's good, right? I mean, I think, to me, when I think of the end of the movie, I'm going to think about the mid-credits reveal, right? I mean, that's really what the movie...
I definitely want to bring that up in terms of, like, because
that's the big one.
It is a thing I thought when the movie came out, and continue to think to this day, the fact that they put that in the mid-credits...
Yes.
Like, the movie doesn't end until the mid-credits. So if you somehow have decided, like, oh, I'm not going to stick around for these things, they're never of any consequence or anything like that. No, you just...
Which would be a totally valid thing to think usually, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but if you leave, okay, the scenes ends and MJ doesn't want to swing again. Okay, credits are rolling, I'm heading out. You have left a very different movie than those that stick around and see the mid-credit sequence.
You see the greatest cameo of all time.
It's wild that, like, the movie doesn't end, or the movie gives you a fake ending, and the real ending is the mid-credit sequence.
Yes. Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, like, weirdly enough, because I obviously knew this going in. Because that was obviously, it's been
because you've seen
5 years.
You've seen Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, and that immediately, like, broke everywhere, right? But, like, I never, like, done it in, like, one run through. And, like, the thing I think of the most in some ways is sort of something like Arkham Knight, which, like, the ending you get for, like, beating the game is very different than the ending you get if you, like, 100% that game. And it's sort of just like, this is dumb. Like, these are, like, different things that are happening. These are different endings, like, fundamentally. Mm-hmm. And like I said, like, you're getting a very different ending that you're leaving that movie on if you don't watch the mid-credit sequence, which is, I mean, like, should you know? Maybe, but also, to your point, like, they're typically like, oh, cool.
Oh, that was a fun little gag.
That's the
and
real
not,
ending.
Oh,
yeah.
That is the actual ending of the movie.
Yeah, that changes what I just watched and how I should, like, think of what's going to happen next, right? Like, 100%. And, like, even more to that, like, I know it's, like, one of Trevor's, like, things he talks about all the time, but, like, one of the only complaints I have with No Way Home is that they just blow right past that. They just go like, we don't want to deal with that, really. We don't really want to do anything with that. Because, like, that is such an interesting idea of, like, what would that look like if they did, like, commit to the idea of, like, everyone knows, how does he live his life, right?
Everyone knows, and they think he's a murderer.
Right, and they just basically immediately just go like, nope, we're not going to do that within, like, 20 minutes of No Way Home. And it's such a shame because it's such an interesting idea. Like, it's sort of it sort of has the effect of me of, like, I wish you just hadn't even done it then, right? Like, if you're not going to, like, commit to it, even for, like, that long next movie, it's just sort of like, oh, what a interesting idea that we don't double down on. And, like, it's sort of, again, to go back to it yet again, like, just seeing how they dealt with that plot twist versus, like, how they dealt with the blip, and, like, these are two ideas which are sort of like, just fix it. You could have fixed the blip and made it a way more seamless thing. And I wish you didn't fix this because this is a way more interesting idea going forward of what that would look like for Spidey. And obviously, like they have to do it because they want us to have all of them together. But it's like, oh man, what a cool idea that I would have loved to have seen explored for even just like half of that movie. It would have been like way more interesting and exciting, let alone like a full movie or beyond.
Yeah. That's definitely is always like my major takeaway is like, oh man, like I remember walking out of Far From Home thinking like,
yeah,
what an interesting new status quo to leave Peter Parker and Spider-Man in. Sad that we're not going to see that, how that pays off for another couple years, since I know they're not going to bring it up in other things. But I look forward to what
it's gonna be so cool when they do.
What a world, what a world looks like where Peter is a villain in the eyes of the world, and like especially in like a fake news kind of version of the Daily Bugle kind of thing. Like what is that going to do? And so the ultimate payoff being like 30 minutes of, oh, well, we kind of like you get a fun cameo of Daredevil as Peter's lawyer, and Damage Control pretty much is like, all right, we believe you. We know enough people who are going to vouch for you that like we know you didn't actually kill Mysterio, but like still public sentiment is really just hurting Peter and his friends' college chances. That's very unsatisfying. Wild.
I mean, for me, I don't know if it's so much that as much as it's a sign of what, because college, like we're adults, we're post-college. College doesn't mean that much to us anymore. But for kids who are 17, 18, getting ready to go to college.
Oh, I'm not diminishing that it's a big deal for them. But in the grand scheme of things, he was just outed as murdering what people think is a new superhero on the block, and that just kind of gets like hand waved away. And the biggest thing he gets from public perception is, colleges are afraid to bring him in because they don't want the notoriety or whatever. It's like,
I also can't remember. Yeah, Trevor, you probably have it off the top of your head because you're like an encyclopedia on this, but like, how far back does he like reset things in No Way Home again?
I mean, No Way Home, he resets so that nobody knew who he was. Right. Nobody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So he has reset everything in whatever magical way that is reset.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a weird side effect of people who knew Spider-Man.
Anyone know that
Spider-Man
Mysterio
doesn't
even
know Peter
existed?
Parker
And
at
like that's
all.
where like I'm trying to like not that I reference it again, but
that's or like they might know. I mean, that's like the movie doesn't go into those kinds of details of like, did Spider-Man still work with the Avengers and do all that stuff, and we just don't know who he was, or all that stuff. I imagine the simplest explanation would be they kind of like rewrote the world a little bit so that like Mysterio still happened and still, had a showdown with Spider-Man, but didn't out his persona or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I kind of took it more as if you knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, you don't really know. Like,
so I mean, the like one of the clues you get at the end of No Way Home, and obviously we're just kind of jumping ahead to No Way Home stuff, but Peter is having to take his GED.
Right.
So like he never went to high school or with MJ and Ned, and like people don't know him, or like he like
I know that
he doesn't have
MJ
like
and Ned obviously don't know him.
Peter Parker doesn't exist kind of in that world a little bit or something like that. So it's one of those like, okay, but does that mean he doesn't have a social security number or what? Like what? Who knows?
Yeah, the can of worms. You right. Yeah.
That's a thing that they will hand wave away when Spider-Man 4 eventually comes out. They'll just kind of be like he's struggling in the way that Tobey Maguire Peter Parker
the way
struggled.
Logan likes it.
but we're not going to to get into specifics of like how he how he has all of the IDs that he needs to exist in our society.
Even there, because see, like I had always read it as like sort of like they like blinked away like the 5 years again kind of thing essentially. Like they were just sort of like, hey, we're gonna reset them back to like this point, and everyone just like were you like like Men in Black like neutralize the people kind of thing, right? So like they just forget him, but like everything still happened. But then it's like, well, if they do that, though, then it gets like almost just as complicated. So it's like we're just gonna be like, don't worry about it.
If they based it really off of like the comic book, all it really means is that Peter Parker is almost like a shadow in people's minds. Like, oh yeah, Peter. I guess Peter was there.
Right,
but Spider-Man is still prevalent.
Thing obviously at like the coffee shop, sort of like, oh, like do I?
Do I know you?
You seem familiar. Yeah, right.
You seem familiar, and it's not like we're in love, and you seem. It's like that's like the whole thing. But I'm assuming people know Spider-Man. Like, it's the idea is that people who knew Peter Parker and Spider-Man were the same person. There's something about them that like whoever, like one of them is going to last for the other person. So if you knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, you remember Spider-Man, but you don't remember Peter Parker.
That's like everybody remembers Spider-Man, but nobody knows that Peter Parker. Nobody knows who Peter Parker was.
Nobody really knows
if he existed. Not to pull the thread on this too much, but like, does this affect,
too much now?
Like,
too much.
Yeah. Does this affect like outside of Earth, for example? So like, is Thor affected by this, or like other people who like aren't on Earth when it happens? So it's like again, this is what happens. You kind of get into like time travel, wiping away stuff, multiversal things. Just sort of like, well, like, okay, but
weird that
that's a whole
weird that
movie.
Magic doesn't really have logic that they really bothered to throw into it.
What if I told you magic doesn't work off logic?
I was gonna say one of my favorite little kind of like riffs on the movie was the I think it was How It Should Have Ended. They basically were like,
probably.
The How It Should Have Ended should have just been, hey, instead of the weirdly worded, let's keep a very specific niche, like, how about you just kind of said it so nobody knows, so Mysterio never said anything. Just do it so Mysterio never said anything. Mysterio never outed who Spider-Man is. Boom, done. But yeah, it's a complicated
also, like,
thing that is it's disappointing that like this movie ends on such a like interesting,
cool idea
kind of thing. Also, I did catch, and I appreciate this time, taking that ending into consideration, both this movie and the last movie, and with what the fuck. With Aunt May saying it at the last movie,
right.
and Peter saying it in this one.
Don't they?
And sadly, we don't get that in the next one. They didn't complete that little trilogy of
that'd have been very odd. Spider-Man's like webbing around the city in the new outfit.
And somebody just screams, "What the?" Yeah. Anyway, but like I'll say both the end credits, like in retrospect, I don't like of this one.
Yeah.
Because the other end credits being like, oh, they were Skrulls the whole time. It's like, okay, well, that helps make a little bit more sense in terms of stuff, but also Nick Fury being up in space is very drastically has very poorly been paid off in the years since. It's just like a fuck all y'all. Like this was this you just made some like, oh, these are going to be just to keep the Buzz cycle opening weekend going to get people to come out and see it next weekend or something like that. Going back to the UK sequence at the end kind of stuff, I do like. I probably fall in the middle of the two of you. I like that it very much is a chance for Peter to kind of learn all the lessons he's needed to learn in this movie. He needs to trust himself. He does have a moment of he needs to rely on his own ingenuity because he's out of web shooters or things aren't working. So he does the whole let's take Cap's shield kind of thing and let's shoot ourselves up into the air using the sonic blasts that they've got going on. So I like those elements. I also like the B plot there of Happy going and saving the kids, and you work with Spider-Man follows me. Flash is just over the moon joy on that. Everybody's confession in the vault.
I'm in love with Spider-Man's aunt.
Yeah, which is especially funny when you realize two of those people know who Spider-Man's aunt is, and are just like, all right, man. And then Flash has no idea. So I like the sequence, and I like that it is Mysterio does himself in.
Yep.
Like, why aren't these firing? Because you're in the blast zone. Fire all of them. I don't care. And then, yeah, the reason why they weren't firing is immediately shown. And I love that again, Peter has learned the lesson to not trust Mysterio's illusion and grabs the gun, shooting, basically right at his head, because of where Mysterio actually was. Is a great.
Mysterio could have gotten away and gotten medical help or medical attention at the very least.
I mean, he could have done any number of things.
Yeah, he could have done any number of things when he vanished basically in front of Peter. But instead, it's just like it's his own comeuppance. Everything about it, down to the very end, is his own comeuppance.
Yeah, but he comes up with a plan in those final seconds to still win by outing Peter. So it's a good contingency plan from kind of beyond the grave. And at least his little cohort kind of gets to
live on,
win the day. That is disappointing because then it doesn't really pay off too well.
Not really though. Yeah,
a couple years down the line. But yeah, I ultimately I still have a ton of fun with this one, and just taking it on its own, it is definitely an interesting beast in terms of like they get away from RDJ being like a co-star in this one, but he's still obviously looming over everything, and they can't completely pull away from that. But I still have a fun time with it. So, any final thoughts? Are we good to head over into grades?
We're good with grades.
All right. So we grade our report card. We grade from A+ to F. Cameron, let's start with you this week. What do you want to give Spider-Man: Far From Home?
I think I gave Homecoming A-, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with an A- on this one.
Okay. Oh wow.
There are things that this movie does I like a lot, but I also feel it's funny. I feel like it's also my least favorite. I confirmed that when we watched it the other night. Is like I think that just speaks to how highly I think of all three of these films. And maybe I'm just being a bit tougher on myself because I'm usually the one giving out A's and A+ all the time. That being said, I think that this settles
you're
itself.
Still giving it an A. So it's still,
I think it's. I would say actually probably I would retrofit Homecoming to A and this as an A-.
Okay.
There's just a lot about the. There's a lot of fresh, funner things I like about Homecoming that. There's some stuff that I don't care for, and I think the Brad stuff is completely useless.
Completely useless. Yeah.
The scroll stuff just always irks me in several different ways. It's just we couldn't just have it be Nick Fury. It had to be the scrolls. It had it's a bit annoying.
Also, speaking of Nick Fury, we do need to shout out him tranking Ned, and then
it's great.
Also being almost ready to kill Peter's teacher in that sequence.
Yeah, the million people who come into that door right afterwards too, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if
one more person enters that door, you and I are attending another funeral. Yeah,
so good. So stuff like that I like, but then it's oh no, it wasn't actually Nick Fury though. I was like, why?
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Well, it's going to lead up to Secret Invasion, and we know how that ended. So frustrated. I think it might I like this movie less because of Secret Invasion.
There you go. Yeah. So A- for you. I think there's also a degree of like we talked about with Endgame and Infinity War. No Way Home also is a thing that should not exist and should not work as well as it does. So it's perfectly fine if you're grading on a curve or whatever where that is, the number one of this trilogy. How about you, Logan? What do you want to give this one?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I'm feeling, I don't know. I'm feeling generous and nice, so I'll say a B-. I'm kind of waffling between that and a C+, but yeah, I feel good about a B-. I think I I am surprised at how much I largely enjoyed the movie. Um, in a lot of
Especially
ways,
given that it is not the Spider-Man story you want. You want
right?
the
Yeah,
friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in New
right.
York.
100%. This is very.
This
I will
is
say-
the opposite of that.
I will say, I think
Right,
one
as
of the reasons
far
I
as
don't
you
like
can
this
get.
movie as much is because we do spend time in Prague and Venice and London, and it's not.
That's like
New
the whole
York.
movie, right? That's like
It's not New York.
The whole thing.
Like it's
Right,
Spider-Man
and, like-
Abroad, which is fine, but it's not as good as Spider-Man Homecoming in Queens, in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, to Trevor's point, that's a great point, Trevor. And in some ways, grading on that curve, I could like even more. I mean, this is almost as far removed as possible from what I want from a Spider-Man story, right? It's traveling across Europe, right, dealing with like an interdimensional, supposedly like being and like elemental monsters, and dealing with like Shield. Everyone trying to make him like a very Avengers focus, him being like the next like Tony Stark, like all that shit I hate about Spider-Man. And that's sort of the irony is that like I feel like the two parts of this movie that I like the least are sort of the beginning and the end, but the middle I think is really like surprisingly fun for me. Like it really works, right? Like I don't like the blip stuff. You just kind of plow through real quick, and then the end, as we discussed, it's a dumb twist. It should be the actual end in A and B. It shouldn't be the end if you're not going to commit to it. But a lot of that middle stuff is good. I mean, it just is, right? Like I really feel like they, MJ, Ned, and Peter, those three characters in particular, like really grow in this movie in a way that I think all three are probably a bit rough around the edges in terms of like how fully formed they are in Homecoming, and here they feel much more like actual people and like lived in characters, and the actors' performances I think shine because of that, and nowhere is that more shown I think than Tom Holland and Peter Parker, right? And we talked a little bit last week about how I think by the end of No Way Home he's sort of where Toby is in the Spider-Man movies that I like. And it's sort of interesting to see that trajectory here. And as Cameron very well put it, like how he handles himself in the UK sequence is him for the first time really kind of being even slightly confident, because he's been pretty pathetic for like two movies in terms of like having any confidence at all. And here, like he actually is kind of like really believes in himself and knows what he's doing and like is capable and knows he's capable, and it's really kind of cool to see that character growth, and even just his confidence with like MJ and other people and how that will kind of continue to evolve. So that's also if I like. I mean, the blip is bad, but you just have to deal with it. And like I said, I really like Happy and Aunt May. I think they're just great together. They're fun. Marissa Tomei can literally do no wrong.
Absolutely not.
Shout out to
Literally a
like
gift.
at the end of the
Literally a
movie of like, all right, so what's going on with you two? Just a summer thing. No, yes, we're dating. Like I love the
Are you
complete
guys dating?
miscommunication they have.
Are you guys dating? Yes. Not really.
Just a summer thing, yeah.
But it's blossomed into something
We'll
more.
have a great sad payoff in No Way Home as well, obviously. But like, yeah, like it's just, I think this movie works in a way I didn't expect it to. I mean, like I think partially because I had the expectation from people being like, this is the bad one of the three. I went in with not high expectations, and I was like, you know what, it's fun, and I feel like a B-. I'm happy with that.
Cool. Yeah, I'll probably go. I think I probably end up splitting the difference a little bit, and I'm probably sitting at a B.
Yeah.
I do think it is of the three Tom Holland ones, it's the weakest.
It's the weakest,
But it's
for
still
sure,
a lot of
yeah.
fun. And it has so many wonderful small moments. And I do love kind of Peter's core relationships throughout. If anything, like his relationship with Ned is by design put on the back burner, as Ned,
I know, it
it
sucks.
spends
Ned
spends the
was so
movie with
good,
Betty.
yeah.
And that's like a funny little thing. But so we get more Peter and MJ scenes. And we obviously get like a lot of good Peter and Mysterio stuff, for good and bad. And also, I do like I like Happy kind of stepping into the like mentor role at the end of the film, and kind of giving him the pep talk. I also love shout out to the joke of like say something only you would know. All right, you there was a movie that you saw, and I knew what kind of movie it was, even though it is okay. Yeah, I love that little payoff for the German trip. And it's also a nice moment just for Happy too, to like, given that Tony was his best friend, so he gets to mourn. It ultimately it does serve as a nice little epilogue to the Infinity arc. Like, Endgame ends on the highest of highs possible, and this is kind of the denouement that lets us come down. Now it'd be nice if kind of the MCU that followed had not taken just a dip in quality for a lot of it.
Right.
And it had kind of like stayed at a high level. But it's also like it's just a weird rebuilding era.
That's an interesting...
Not the least of which has been impacted by a global pandemic that shifted a whole lot of things around in terms of like timing and schedule and all that stuff as well.
That's an interesting point, though. I mean, I almost view this more as like a post coda almost, right? Because like I think people forget how much time there is after Tony's death in Endgame, that they just kind of let things settle, which I think is actually like one of the best parts of Endgame, is how it doesn't just like end within like 2 minutes of that. It is like a lot of like settlement. And,
no, sorry.
So like that's almost a denouement, and this is almost like the post
obviously
epilogue in a way.
Endgame has its own denouement. Yes, but in terms of the broader like
repercussions that are like ripples that are felt, right?
18 movies led up to a climax of Endgame, and this movie is like the one coming down after the fact. Before we really start into a new adventure, a new journey with the MCU kind of stuff. Like, this is closing a book on the Tony Stark stuff that started in 2008.
I also think it's and the way that like Falcon the Winter Soldier does for Cap, obviously. I also think it's interesting to note that despite the fact that we all think that Far From Home is the weakest of the Tom Holland trilogy, it is so important to give that context and say that it is so much better than the weakest of either of the other two Spider-Man series.
Sure. Yeah.
So much better. And while this series might not have, in my opinion, the high of like Spider-Man 2, it is unquestionably the most consistent throughout, easily.
Yes.
I mean, I guess you could make an argument that Amazing Spider-Man is also very consistent, just not in a good way. But yeah, easily the most consistent of all three of the series.
Yeah. Speaking of, let's do some ranking of other things. So we have our Sinister Six, which is now with Mysterio up to 12. So we've got two Sinister Sixes here in the mix. Just as a recap, our number 11 is Rhino, number 10 Venom, number 9 Sandman, number 8 the Green Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man, number 7 Electro, number 6 Bully Maguire, number 5 Lizard, number 4 New Goblin, aka James Franco from the Raimi trilogy, number 3 Green Goblin, number 2 from last week Vulture, and number 1 Doc Ock. So where do we want to throw Mysterio in the mix here?
I just want to point out, the only reason Lizard is that high is because you wanted something over Bully Maguire.
Yeah.
That's the only reason Lizard's that high. You did it yourself, Logan.
I also think it's an indictment of...
I mean, it's more of an indictment of the rest of the villains.
That's true.
Yeah, I was going to say...
It's again, like, the first, that like, there is a top tier, then there's Lizard, then there's the gag of Bully Maguire, and then there's everyone else.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah. I would say he's 4.
So above James Franco?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think, Cam?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I like James Franco.
I'm good with that.
I just think that he's not the villain in his own movie. Like, if James Franco had just been the only villain in Spider-Man 3,
if New Goblin had been
I think is more of a... Yeah, I think it's more of a conversation. But the fact that he's like splitting it with like 3 other dudes is like...
Absolutely. I can put it there. Mysterio, a very very great performance, and
Yes.
yeah, again,
Yeah.
we're still
Easily.
easily in a different tier of villain
Yeah.
compared to some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
No new cameos to rank in this one. So
I
yeah.
also should say, I guess, to be nice to Lizard, I didn't mean necessarily the Lizard performance is not bad. It is just so funny that he was so high ranked. It's like, wow, that seems really high for a guy who. But Lizard was good. He was a solid villain, if not great, right?
Yeah. So our Spider-Man rankings, we have Far From Home to add to the list now. Our rankings thus far, at number 6, Spider-Man 3, number 5, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, number 4, The Amazing Spider-Man, number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, number 2, Spider-Man, and number 1, Spider-Man 2. Where do we want to throw Far From Home into the mix? I'm guessing 4 above The Amazing Spider-Man's, but
Yeah. That's where
That's
I'm
what
at.
I'm debating. I mean, like, it's so. The problem is that, like, me and Cameron, I feel like talked about this for like a lot. Like, there's so much of Amazing Spider-Man 1 that I think it's like the classic movie. Like, anytime I think about Amazing Spider-Man, I'm like, I feel like I really enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man, and then I watch them like, oh, I really don't though, do
Yeah.
I? And it's like that's like the mind trick of like, I feel like I really enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man. even
curse
thinking
you,
about
Andrew
the fact that I
Garfield,
just
for
watched it,
being
like, a
so
month and a half
charming.
ago. Right, and it's just like,
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield's so
You look at that
good.
cast, you're like, wait,
problem.
that's a really great cast.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
Andrew
okay,
Garfield and
and
Emma
like,
Stone. It's like, oh, they're so good
They're so
together.
good together.
It's like,
And like, I'm like, yeah.
more than I think it. Yeah,
yeah, and I think the suit's cool, and like, there's a lot of really
Yeah, that's, like,
interesting
the
action
thing.
stuff. And then you watch the movie, you're like, I forgot about the cranes. I forgot about how he's like the
Well, the
best,
cranes are great,
the
to be
most
clear. The
important
cranes are
promises
great,
are the
yeah.
ones you can't keep.
yeah.
Like there's so much about that movie that just doesn't work and is so against itself, which is
Yeah.
proof of like it came together in like a year. So, like unfortunately, to that detriment, I definitely rank Far From Home above Amazing Spider-Man. I enjoy way more about Far From Home than Amazing Spider-Man. And to top it all off, like I just think that it's just a better film, top to bottom. Like it's just a better film.
All right. Then you're good with that too, Logan. Spider-Man Far From Home in there at number 4.
I wouldn't fight it for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's like the one I just always want to like it more than I do. Yeah,
Yeah. All
breaks my heart
right.
every time.
So our new rankings: number 7, Spider-Man 3; number 6, Amazing Spider-Man 2; number 5, Amazing Spider-Man; number 4, right in the middle, Spider-Man Far From Home; number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming; number 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man; and number 1, Spider-Man 2.
Good movies, mostly.
All right. Then extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. Sadly, Disney Plus is going to recommend Secret Invasion. But yeah, skip that. So instead, you've got
Skip a couple of these probably.
Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 3. And yeah, let's say instead of Secret Invasion and Spider-Man 3, go ahead and watch Spider-Man 1 and 2 of the Raimiverse.
I would agree.
Extracurriculars. Anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus?
I'll give a shout out
Go ahead, Logan.
to The Simpsons. And in particular, this is probably, Cameron, I don't know how much he knows The Simpsons at all. He might not know anything. But I know Trevor is also a big Simpsons guy like I am. And I just have to go shout out to, because I don't know why, but it popped up on like YouTube, and I maybe just watched the whole episode of the episode where Principal Skinner hosts the superintendent for dinner.
Yes.
And it remains one of the best
Steamed
things
hams.
I've ever seen in my, like, it's still one of, I think, just like the most cleverly written episodes, not just of the show, like of any show. It's a perfect episode.
Because isn't that like that's like 20 stories from Springfield, right? That's just one of the stories
Yeah.
of that little anthology episode. Yeah,
Yeah,
That's so good.
I
It's
don't
so
like. I've far too often see the steamed hams like thing going around as a
Yeah.
meme, and I'm like, why did that become a meme? I don't understand the internet, guys. The internet is weird, and I'm old, and I don't
whole
like it.
sequence of-
You.
what made
The
me
crazy thing
watch-
is, you
what-
grew up with the internet just like me, and I don't like. And I get it.
What the best part of it is that, like, what made me watch it was specifically the like, dear God, what's happening behind you? Aurora Borealis. May I see it? No, it's like that whole like exchange. It's just it's such a great. I love it.
There's that
It's
episode.
best.
I love anthology episodes. Like what
I
happened.
agree.
Like the episode where every member of the Simpsons gets a like $20.
Yep.
And it's like, what do they spend it on? And my favorite is like Bart and Millhouse go on like a New York, but Springfield. It's a hell of a time. Like, it's stuff like that that's just like is totally impacted in my memory for forever. So like Steamed Hams is one of them.
Yeah.
Also, the one where Skinner and Krabappel get in a relationship and get found out by Bart. And so Skinner straps frozen hot dogs to his chest to make it look like a dynamite, like suicide vest. I remember that. And they solve it by like, we broke up, but they just are continuing to have an affair in secret.
Also,
In reality,
anything
it's
that
like
you
it shouldn't be
scratch
that
is
big of a
always
deal
good
that they
too.
were together. They were both single. So
You've just reminded me, namely from singing Springfield, it's a hell of a town. I have somewhere in, might be in that closet actually. I have many of the Simpsons CDs that were like, here's a collection of the songs from The Simpsons. Songs
you would.
songs in the key of Springfield. The Simpsons Testify.
It's great.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed those albums and those CDs growing up.
Like the fact that Trevor just not only that Trevor knows about them, but owns them, and they're in the closet behind me.
Oh yeah.
Just it's like there's nothing more Trevor than that.
Yeah.
My favorite Simpsons music trivia thing. I went to I don't know if it was even still a thing when you were of age, Cam, but there's on Mill Avenue there was the Big Bang, which was like a piano bar.
Yeah.
I went there once basically in college, but they were doing they did like a trivia night kind of thing as part of the evening, and the pianist would basically like play songs, and like it was okay, I'm going to play a theme song from a show. Guess what the show is? And he played the theme song from the show Hill Street Blues, which I have never seen, never heard, but The Simpsons had a parody of it, and it sounded close
Obviously,
enough
of
to
course.
that. And I was like, Hill Street Blues? He's like, winner! And I was like, thank you, The Simpsons. And it's on one of those albums. So I had listened to it many a time.
I know we've talked before, Trev, about how The Simpsons is such a smart. It's genuinely such a smart, clever show, and like how it is like a gateway into so many pop culture touchstones and references, right? And like obviously like Citizen Kane, right? And like Rosebud, but like there's so many things just like, oh, like I know this because of The Simpsons, and then I watched the actual thing years later, right? And like there are so many moments of that, like the Hill Street Blues reference where I'm sort of like, I know this, and it's like, how do I know that? And it's like, oh right, because Simpsons parodied it 20 years ago. Like every horror film that's ever parodied and like shows horror, I probably haven't even seen the horror film, but I know the reference because of The Simpsons for sure. Like I watched the Simpsons parody of The Shining before I ever remotely watched The Shining, right? And so yeah, it's just I think a testament to how clever the writing is.
Yep. From Songs in the Key of Springfield, track number
Trevor was doing the whole-
track
yeah.
number 17, The Simpsons end credits theme, Hill Street Blues version from the episode The Springfield Connection. That won me, I think, $5 for
there you go.
a little trivia thing at a piano bar. That's a fun little dive down Simpsons lane. Anything on your end, Cameron, that you've watched?
We just barely finished Loki and whatnot, so I have not really like gone back into the catalog that is Disney Plus just yet.
Fair. For me, I did, especially after talking about it in the last episode, I watched a few of the episodes of Behind the Attraction, including the Indiana Jones one, and the fun kind of
right, I
little
need to do that.
stories they talked about on coming up with the ideas behind the Indiana Jones ride, and it ends up being like a nice fit of the R&D team kind of landed on like the ride vehicle for that at the time that they were trying to come up with that Michael Eisner was really pushing, like do an Indiana Jones theme kind of thing, and it all worked out kismet, and they landed on a fun little idea. So yeah, shout out to that. Behind the attraction. Yeah, I think that's the only other thing I watched this last week. So there we go. That's going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Logggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
Shout out to Trevor. Still doing Baldur's Gate 4.
Baldur's Gate 3.
3?
Yep.
Take a shot in the dark. So shout out to that. You mean it is kind of insane.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
shout out easily.
As I was telling Logan before we started recording, I had to re-record a couple episodes, including the one that would have gone live yesterday as of this episode going out, because OBS decided to screw me and took away the game audio, and I didn't catch it while I was recording. So went back and reloaded a save and replayed 2 episodes worth of the game to redo those Let's Plays rather than just upload 2 episodes of just my audio and the game, because that would have been weird. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to the most recent That Nerdy Site show that we just recorded. We had a blast going through. I had a blast talking about Armored Core 6, and Trevor had a blast talking about the 18 different indie games that he's played.
3, but yes. Thirsty Suitors, Oxenfree 2,
nice.
and Goodbye Volcano.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah, easily.
Yep. Yeah, it was
Goodbye
a
Volcano, I
fun
wanna
fun
check out.
episode chatting about that one. Yeah, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to shouting out those things, I will shout out the upcoming month of Disney Plus stuff, which will be holiday themed. Don't know quite yet what we're going to kick the month off with first. I imagine it'll probably be. I'll have to figure out, because I imagine, Logan, we're not going to have you for like the December 1st episode. Maybe we'll
Maybe,
connect.
yeah.
We'll connect offline. But I mean,
Yeah.
the things we've been talking about are Iron Man 3, Home Alone 4,
Right, I forgot about that.
Ernest Saves Christmas, and
Yeah.
I forgot what the other one was going to be. But
It'll be Frozen 1 and 2 double feature. Logan, you're required to watch them.
no. But yeah, that's what we have
would.
kind of in the potential here. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Oh, that's right.
Not
Oh,
holiday
right.
themed, but we did talk about that one since that's going to hit Disney Plus the beginning of the month. We'll figure out what we're going to do here in the weeks ahead. But stay tuned for all of that fun stuff as we wind down the year here. And obviously, this is coming out the day after Thanksgiving. So if you celebrated that, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good one. Hope you didn't end up getting into fights with family, because that's never fun. Yeah.
Never forget telling Trevor, hey, if you end up going to jail, let me know. I'll bail you out.
Yep, appreciate that. Yeah, you can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Once again, I think I didn't actually say that at the top of the episode, so whatever. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and thwip thwip.